Hello there, Spider Gwen here, and I'm here to review Spider-Man 2. So it's been a while since I last played the game, and spoiler alert, I'm not in that game. But I'm here to kind of keep on the Spider-Man theme, and because Spider-Verse is truly, right now, two wonderful movies, and looking really forward for the third one. Spider-Man 2, it's been a while. I did try to remember some of the plot points. I will warn that this review will be more focused on the story part than the gameplay part, because if you have played the first Spider-Man, it's not really that different from the gameplay slash mechanics point of view. So there's not much I could say. The gameplay works, and it's easy to understand, and it's basically expanding, mostly reusing what you have already had in mechanics in the first Spider-Man, and it's basically reusing that and expanding in some senses. So, after Spider-Man and the... what would you call it? It was not considered like a full game, but at the same time it was sold separately, which was the Miles Morales game. It was kind of a DLC, but at the same time it was a separate game. After those came out, Spider-Man 2 is now a game where you can play with both of them. So you have the original Spider-Man, Peter Parker's side of story, and you have Miles Morales' story, because Miles Morales became like the apprentice. He's learning how to be Spider-Man with Peter Parker, so in the future he may probably, take his place as the Spider-Man of New York. And I actually don't remember where Miles is from, because it's more like, a smaller neighborhood. Harlem? And this game focused on both of them. As you know, by playing Spider-Man and Miles Morales games, they have different gameplay because Miles has different abilities like electricity and invisibility, which is awesome to break combos and to do stealth, which I love to do with Miles. And it's just a different gameplay. And Peter will have also different abilities in this game, because we have seen on the trailers that the main focus of Spider-Man 2 would be Venom and Kraven. So Kraven honestly is here just to wreak havoc. He didn't have the excitement challenge he wanted back at his home in the forest, wherever he lived, and he decided that New York was a place full of beasts that would test his capacities as a hunter. And that's it. He basically came to New York because you have Lizard, you have Sandman, you have a lot of these, metahuman, superhuman, whatever they are called. Let's not go into X-Men stuff there. And Spider-Man is also, a challenge that Kraven wants to test. I feel like Kraven is so weird as a villain, because he doesn't really have bad intent. He's not good either, but it's so weird to me that he's considered a villain, because honestly, it's like saying that someone as Vegeta or Goku are villains because they just want to fight against stronger opponents, to test their abilities as fighters. That's basically what Kraven is. Of course, he does horrible stuff, like making Lizard go berserk because he wants to test his hunter abilities against a very strong opponent. He's questionable. You also have the Venom plot. So, we had seen at the end of Spider-Man, the first one, that Harry was, kind of dormant because of the disease that he has, and Norman was trying to get a cure for him. And he found it in the form of the Venom symbiote. And he does this special suit for his son, and Harry is feeling awesome. He doesn't feel... so I think he has some kind of degenerative illness, so he has to permanently wear the suit. And of course, the symbiote does influence his personality, so he's feeling perky, but at the same time also kind of irritable. He has these outbursts, but I don't feel like the symbiote affects him very much. the person you will see being very affected is Peter. So, Peter is in an entirely different phase of his life. His main villains are basically retired. You see them working or somehow inserted in society, or they are just fully imprisoned. And he is trying to do another chapter in his life. He got a job as a university teacher or a high school teacher, not really sure which one, but he's a teacher, a science teacher of some kind, and he's always interrupting his classes to, just do Spider-Man stuff. And you see that he's trying to balance this out, but it's just being a chaos. And he's really torn about this because he doesn't really want to stop being Spider-Man, but he also wants some semblance of normal life. And he needs it because Mary Jane, they are fully sharing a life. And Mary Jane is also struggling because she's working in the journalism field, but she's working for Jameson. And she doesn't really like having to deal with him and having to deal with his, his tendencies. He's not really impartial in the kind of news that he wants to produce. It's a very difficult life for both of them. There's this mission where they're trying to uncover what is going on. Mary Jane is also there doing stealth, and Peter's life is almost... I was really surprised when that happened because he is injured almost fatally. You are seeing him literally die. And at that moment, Harry was also at the place, and the symbiote leaves Harry and connects with Peter, and he is able to save his life. He also has an outburst of power and everything. And after that, the suit, the symbiote, doesn't want to leave Peter. That becomes a huge problem because Peter is becoming dependent on the symbiote because he sees, this power that he has gained. His personality slowly starts to change because he gets mad at Miles for being so dependent of him. He also doesn't want to deal with Mary Jane's problems. He doesn't care that his best friend Harry is slowly becoming increasingly more ill because he needs the suit to, the symbiote, to counteract against his degenerative illness. And he doesn't care because he says, I'm Spider-Man and I need this power to fight against all the evil. And he's becoming very conceited and very dependent on the suit. It's actually so good, the voice acting, the way that Yuri Lowenthal just portrays this so well in the way that he does the voice acting, because you can clearly see in his voice and the way that he delivers his lines this descent into the madness that is Peter becoming intertwined with Venom, with the symbiote. Miles is seeing this and he's like, something's very wrong with Peter, and you also see a lot of development. I know there were some people that were like, oh, this game is all about Peter and why the hell is Miles in here? But I disagree. I think this game is just as much about Peter as it is about Miles, because Miles clearly still has some issues to resolve that are actually solved in this game. I mean, he still had some feelings of revenge about Mr. Negative because of all the plot on the first game. He goes after Mr. Negative. Every time anyone mentions his name, he feels very vengeful and, wronged. And it's so interesting to see that at a certain point when Mr. Negative enters his mind and is trying to, Mr. Negative also wants some kind of redeem to kind of close that chapter in his life. And Miles decides to spare Mr. Negative and tells him, just find Peter, just find the other Spider-Man and help me. And it's so nice to see him, get over these feelings of being resentful towards Mr. Negative. It's just awesome the way this is built. And you see this development of Miles, him unlocking more of his powers, of his electric powers, the way that he also saves Peter. It's not about... Peter is always protecting Miles, always helping him, and then suddenly you see Miles stepping up fighting against Peter because he's becoming a menace to himself and to the people around him. He's losing his identity as Spider-Man, the hero that saves others. And he stops Peter, he helps him get his life and his mind back on track. He teams up with Mr. Negative to do this, to kind of solve Peter's trauma relating to his aunt's death. And it's so amazing to see the development and the evolution of both characters. With this, at a certain point, Peter is separated from Venom thanks to his fight against Miles, that learned that the weakness of the symbiote is very loud sounds. Venom becomes an identity separated from Peter, and Peter, by being saved by Mr. Negative, gets the anti-venom suit, which is awesome. It's so cool to explore the abilities of the anti-venom suit, and it's so useful. So Venom becomes an identity of its own, and he just starts trying to take the planet for himself, to kind of colonize, make it its home, something like that. And he's, of course, the final villain of this game. Kraven was absolutely destroyed by Venom, because I was actually surprised by this. You play as Venom. You play, and it's so, the gameplay is so fun. You're playing as a villain, but it's so fun, the gameplay, because you are you have the power to destroy everything. And of course, it's not a good power to have, especially as a hero. But then again, you are fighting Kraven and he ends up dying. And I guess it's his greatest honor. He was overpowered by a clearly best hunter than he is, by a literal beast. So yeah, Venom tries to take over and Miles and Peter team up to stop him. And at the end of the game, you see this. Peter is gonna retire from being Spider-Man. He has to commit to that. And Miles is gonna step up as the only Spider-Man that is going to save the city. So it's a very satisfying game. For a third game, which I think is already been confirmed that they want to do a third one, to just do a trilogy about this. I think it's just gonna be Miles. Of course, Peter is gonna show up here and there, but it's just gonna be about Miles being the Spider-Man, the hero of the city, and not sure what they want to portray. I mean, it's clearly teased that even though Harry survived, because Harry is attacked and he almost dies, but Miles is able to restart his heart thanks to the electricity that he has. And Norman is still very mad at this whole situation. And I think he's mad at Peter for some reason. I don't really understand why, or maybe it was just his grief talking. He doesn't want contact with anyone. And I think you're gonna get Green Goblin for the next game, if that does happen. But other than that, I mean, I'm not really sure what they want to do with this. So the gameplay is a lot of fun. Of course, you also get the stealth sequences with Mary Jane back. I still feel like it's kind of stupid how she can stun. I know she had training with that Sable. I'm not really remembering her name. She appears in the first Spider-Man game. I know she had training with the organization that she is a part of, but I still feel like the stealth sections with Mary Jane, even though they make sense, they are a little bit stupid in the sense that she can overpower enemies and sometimes even monsters or creatures. But then of course, she's not Spider-Man, and she's, face-to-face combat, she's not able to handle herself. It's weird to me. But hey, you also get a section where you are basically fighting Venom as Mary Jane, which actually surprised me. But Mary Jane is such a likable character. I was so in awe when I saw her being possessed by the symbiote and she became Scream. I know it's a thing from the comics. I have no idea how Scream is actually in, the comics and all that, but the design was such a treat. It was so awesome, really. And of course, if we're talking about the girls that appear in this game, we also have to talk about Haley. I know there were people that were really mad at the section because you have a small section where you can play as Haley, but as someone that my worst nightmare would be to become deaf because music is my life. I thought it was such an interesting section of the game because you don't do much, you're just doing like a everyday task for Haley. But the fact that you only feel the vibration of the controller and there's no sound in that section, it just made everything so interesting. And it really puts you in the shoes of someone that is deaf. Of course, you cannot imagine what it's like to struggle, every hour of every day. But it was so interesting to me, and I thought, and there were people that were like, oh, why am I playing with Haley? But I feel like it was such a well done section, and it was just something really nice to have. And it's also nice to see how her relationship with Miles evolves, and of course he's also having some trouble because of his Spider-Man side, but it's so nice to see that at the end of the game they still end up together, and I hope that their relationship really works. Even though I'm Spider Gwen, doesn't matter. Then of course you also have here returning Yuri, which she now is Wraith. So you have these side quests. As always, your map is filled with stuff for you to collect, and some villains only appear in side stuff like Mysterio, which you can do his challenges with Miles, and you actually discover at the end of those challenges, which were kind of difficult to deal with, you actually discovered that Mysterio was being imprisoned and his powers and technology were being used by these very annoying people, and Miles actually, he thought that he was being deceived by Mysterio that was saying, oh, I'm retired, when in actuality he really was and was being used by these very mean people. And you actually have to save Mysterio, and it's a very nice conclusion to those challenges and side quests. You also have then with Peter the Wraith side quest. So you have this weird cult which is something related to flames. I'm not really sure what they were, but yeah, you have this weird cult, and Wraith is trying to take them down because remember that she became a vigilante, so she wants to still keep order in the city, but she disagrees with Spider-Man in the sense that she sees the corruption and doesn't think that putting these people behind bars really does anything. She thinks that they should just die because they can't be redeemed. And she's trying to do justice by her own hand, and you have, Peter just trying to say to her, no, because you're becoming a criminal and you can't just have the blood of these people on your hands. And it was very interesting to see this confrontation and Wraith slowly coming to an agreement with Spider-Man. I mean, she doesn't really fully agree, but she comes to the compromise of trying to see things on his side and trying to be a little more lenient in the way she serves justice. I tried to do all the challenges, they were fun. This time there was no screwball to make me mad with her challenges. The Mysterio challenges were the ones that I found annoying because I would die a lot of times, but they were doable and I did finish the side quests. You also have Uncle Aaron's stashes, which were fun puzzles to do as well. And you just have a lot of elements that are really enjoyable. This is a game that you can fully explore and it has so many things to appreciate. It's so good to see Peter and Harry having this good relationship, the foundation that they created with both of their mothers' names. It's all around a very heartwarming story, and I feel like the game really sells for the story itself. Oh, by the way, since I'm here as Spider Gwen, you also have a side quest related to the Spider-Verse, where you have, a peek at the Spider-Verse. It was like a nice Easter egg only with the spiders, the spider bots that you collect around the game. And it was just so fun because the spider bots represent different Spider-Mans, and it was such a nice treat. I hope you enjoyed this review. This game, I really recommend it because it's such a good sequel to the first Spider-Man, and it's such a treat in terms of gameplay and story. The soundtrack is also very adequate for the game that you're playing. It has awesome quality, the voice acting is top-notch, and I think you should give it a try because it's a lot of fun and the drama and the story really appeal to you. So, thank you so much. If you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more reviews and more content, and hope to see you in the next video. May music always be your life force.